It was a tough weekend for the Lightning, dropping back-to-back games on the road in Utah and Vegas. But are the Lightning still in contention to win the Atlantic Division?
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Josh Sperber, welcoming all of you into another episode of Locked On Lightning. I want to thank all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. And we are going to start off in Utah, where the Lightning visited on Saturday for the first time in franchise history. It was a back-and-forth game with a whole lot of goals being scored. Utah taking a 2-0 lead, then Brayden Point taking the lead in power play goals. Getting into the tie for second place in power play goals. Jake Guentzel still leads with a goal to make it 2-1. Beginning of the second period, Cirelli tied it. And right after that, an answer from Alexander Kerfoot of the Utah Hockey Club. 36 seconds in between goals. And that is a point that we're going to come back to because it happened again. Jake Guentzel got Brayden Point with his 34th goal of the season. At that point, it was the lead for the Lightning. Point ended up getting another one. But 30 seconds after Guentzel's goal, 4-3 Utah. This time Logan Cooley gets it. Utah took a 5-3 lead in the third period. Brayden Point got his goal, 5-4. Then the empty netter ended it for Utah. But I think that second period was maybe the most key moment of the entire game. And I think if you look at a lot of Lightning games, it comes down to the second period, whether it's the Lightning popping off for 4 goals or it happening to the other team. In that case, it was a dead even split, 2 goals apiece in period number 2. But it ended up with Utah out in front. And I think one of the reasons that Utah stayed in the lead was just the Lightning kind of eased up for a second. And it seemed like on the ensuing face-off, they're like, all right, we just scored, we just tied it up. Everybody relax a little bit. And then by the time they're done relaxing, Utah's already got another goal. Right off the face-off, after both of the Lightning's second period goals, Utah ended up putting one in. And, I mean, it was preventable goals. It just looked like the Lightning didn't get back quick enough, and they just took their foot off the gas for a second too soon. And that, I think, cost them the game. I think that even if one of those goals didn't happen, if the Lightning kind of learned their lesson after the first of 2 goals for Utah in the second period, this one from Kerfoot, I think that, like, if Cooley's goal didn't happen, it's a completely different game. Completely. Yes, Schmaltz's goal was within the first 2 minutes of the third period, but a minute or so after that, Brayden Point got another one. So the Lightning were still in it. They were still fighting. They were still battling, but just for those brief 2 moments in the second period, for a total of about a minute, the Lightning just kind of took a breath, and the Utah Hockey Club jumped on them. And the Lightning paid for it with a loss against a team that you'd really think that they should have beat. And this was the first of 2 games this weekend where the Lightning had some chances to put themselves in the thick of that first place race. It's something that we're going to be talking about probably in one way, shape, or form for the rest of the year until first place in the Atlantic gets decided. Something we'll go into more depth on in the final segment, but it's something that is going to be an underlying focus of every game this season. It's going to make every win feel that much sweeter. It's going to make every mistake, every loss feel that much worse. But that's crunch time. That's the time of year that it is. It's not just March Madness because of basketball, folks. It's crunch time in the NHL as well. And the Lightning are certainly feeling it, because this was a loss that I think the Lightning maybe not should have won, but could have won. This was a preventable loss, and this was a game that just slipped out of the hands of the Lightning. It just seems like they didn't have it for all 60 minutes, and for the brief moments that they slipped, Utah took advantage and jumped right on them. And that was certainly just gut-wrenching, really, to watch. But a big development was Braden Point getting 2 goals after he had been held without a goal for the entire month of March, almost. His last goal came on March the 3rd in Florida. Then 2 goals in Utah. He didn't net any against Vegas, but you always want to see your leading goal scorer back on the score sheet. And for much of the season, that has been Braden Point. Right now, him and Gensel tied with the team lead at 34. Lightning have 3 30-goal scorers now, thanks to Nikita Kucherov netting in game number 2. 4 30-goal scorers. But it's always a good thing. You know, you want to find those silver linings. You have a guy who has been struggling to put it in the net over the last couple of games, a few assists here and there, but the consistent point production that you expect from Braden Point just hasn't been there over the last little while for the Lightning, and that is something that they are absolutely going to need down the stretch. They still have a game in hand to make up with against the Florida Panthers, as they sit even on games, but 2 points behind the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that's something we're going to talk about more in the next segment, because technically it was the Sunday game that they had to make up on Toronto. Florida, coming into that game on Sunday, really gave the Lightning a chance, and it ended up the same way on Saturday. 6-3 loss to the Capitals for the Panthers. Of course, that being Washington, maybe the best team in the league. But the Lightning had their opportunities in this game. I think of the 2 games that they played this weekend, this was certainly the most winnable. Not just of how the game turned out, but on paper. I mean, Utah is a 500 hockey club right now. And barely. 32, 27, and 11. So technically they're over 500 in regulation, but 11 overtime losses and a -9 goal differential puts them under 500. And those kind of teams, you have to think at this point in the season, these are teams that the Lightning need to beat. These are teams that playoff teams need to beat. These are teams that contenders need to beat. And I'm saying all of these things because at this point in the season, that is what the Lightning are. 85 points puts them in the top tier of the Eastern Conference. You look at Eastern Conference teams, you have 2 teams in their division ahead of them, and then 2 teams in the Metropolitan Division ahead of them. Capitals have already clinched the playoffs, and the Hurricanes are on 90 points. Maple Leafs, Panthers, and Lightning all within 5 points of each other and within 5 points of 90. And this is a make or break time for the Lightning. And I'll say it again in the next segment, because I think the loss against Vegas really just seemed like the wheels fell off for Tampa Bay. But it just reminds me kind of the beginning of February, when the Lightning had a bunch of tough losses and then had a bunch of home games in a row to make up for them. And that is really the only silver lining that you can see, because this was a winnable game for Tampa Bay. You have Braden Point finding the score sheet for the first time in a while. Just about everyone on the Lightning offense getting involved. 4 goals on the same amount of shots. Almost. I mean, 1 more shot for the Lightning compared to Utah. But this was a game that you really feel like the Lightning let slip away. And especially when we talk about the game against Vegas on Sunday, you'll understand why. But the Lightning putting themselves in a tougher situation with 2 road losses Now, the Kraken were a team on paper that the Lightning came in better than. This was a game between contenders, a potential Stanley Cup final, a lot of teams said, as Vegas became the third team in the Western Conference to reach 90 points. They got over 90 points with a win against Tampa. That is the next game we will break down here on Locked On Lightning. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Tough game in Utah, but another tougher one was on the horizon for the Lightning. The Vegas Golden Knights, the next team to take on Tampa, as the Bolts made their first trip to Vegas this season, ended up splitting the season series because of a truly dominant first period. And these weren't goals that just you lost a lot of times. This was just domination from the Golden Knights in the first period. Hertl has been on an absolute tear. And a quick power play goal within the first half of the game. Then 2 minutes later, Hertl scored. Eichel gets one at the end of the period. And these were all that, might have been a case of just losing the puck for a second here and there. But those were all really good goals. You can't fault Vasilevsky in, but it's just tough because Vasilevsky has been playing both legs of just about every back-to-back for 2025. In February, he was in goal for that back-to-back before the Four Nations. And then against the Panthers, in at home at the beginning of March as well. So Vasilevsky has not missed a start in a while. And you always feel good when you come in having a rested goalie, especially when that goalie's name is Andrei Vasilevsky. Maybe the best goalie in the league. In my case, one of two options for the Vezina Trophy for this season. But you feel good about that. And then the Golden Knights just come out firing. And it also didn't help that Ilya Samsonov had one of the best games I've seen by a goalie against the Lightning this season. I mean, it really hurts when the Golden Knights already have a top-notch goalie in Adin Hill. He is their normal starter. He's played 42 games so far this season. This was Samsonov's 28, so he gets in plenty of run as the backup. But you just don't expect these kind of games from any team's backup goaltender. And it's the NHL. These kind of things happen, but I mean, it's another case of, as John Cooper put it earlier in the season, making the other team's goalie look like a Vezina candidate whenever we come into the game. I'm paraphrasing, but I mean, that's what's been happening. And this we haven't seen since January, really. It seems like, it's been tough sledding, sure, even with some of these wins, but just the bad puck luck, the whatever, demons were around the Lightning in January seem to have faded. And then Samsonov goes off and makes 35 saves and has an incredible game to keep the Lightning out of it, because there were a lot of times where it seems like the Lightning were in control of this one and they dominated on the faceoffs as well. Power plays were even. I mean, you look at the metrics, other than block shots, the Lightning are favored in just about everything. But the big stat is giveaways. 14 for the Lightning, 10 for the Golden Knights. And a lot of those plays that led to goals were transition. And that's been a problem in some instances for the Lightning this season, just not being able to get back quick enough and just kind of losing the other team in transition. And that is where the Golden Knights clearly shined tonight. And it was just another game where when the Lightning made a mistake, the Golden Knights were right on top of it to capitalize. And it looked even more effective than Utah. And there were certainly, some times against the Utah Hockey Club where just Halverson couldn't find the net. Like he just couldn't find the puck. And it just got lost in a crowd or something like that. And it's just unlucky. Utah's the first person, the dark jersey is the first person there crashing. But this wasn't that. This was 3 really well-worked goals in the first period that weren't as much on the Lightning making mistakes defensively. It was just on the Golden Knights offensive unit picking the defense apart. And that almost hurts more, especially since this was a team that the Lightning gutted out a win against at the beginning of the season. A last-second goal from Kucherov in that one of the, I think, signature wins at the start of the season that made the Lightning look like a team that was here not as a rebuilding club after they lost their star, but as a team that is going to mean business in this season. And the Lightning, over the course of this year, has absolutely proven that this isn't a rebuilding year. Losing Stamkos wasn't about like, all right, we're in a rebuild. No, this was about something that is better for the Lightning now. It's something that I've discussed in previous shows. It's something that Jake Gensel has exemplified on a nightly basis for the Lightning. One of the league leaders in power play goals and goals for Tampa Bay this as well. I mean, he's done an incredible job adjusting to his third new team in 2024. So, I mean, but this was just the Golden Knights turning it back around on the Lightning. And those 3 first period goals really just set the tone and kind of knocked the wind out of the Lightning early on. And I think you take that first period away, technically the Lightning win the game because Vegas did not score a goal on Vasilevsky after that first period. And frankly, because of the saves both goalies made, this game could have been a shootout. Samsonov and Vasilevsky made some incredible saves that, you just don't expect from a goaltender, but some really well-worked goals got it. And imagine you take out that first period, you take out that empty net goal, that power play rip from Kucherov in the last 2 seconds is a game changer on the Lightning season. I mean, you can play coulda, woulda, shoulda all night long, and it's not going to change anything, but you have to think that this was not too far off from being the other way around in favor of the Tampa Bay Lightning, because this was just a game where 2 goaltenders were playing great, and the Golden Knights just capitalized on more chances than the Lightning did, plain and simple. And you can make the 11-7 argument. I know I got a message from the Locked On Vegas Golden Knights podcast, another pod you should check out, by the way. Kind of confused about the Lightning going 11-7 because it was a regular 12-6 game. Could have been because Mitchell Chaffee was on the scratch list, but part of it's just the way the Lightning can change things up and, throw some different looks at the opponents when they're going through a little bit of a rut. And they wanted to mix something up in the last game of their road trip, second game of a back-to-back, give some offensive players a little bit more rest. And it's, again, I don't think it's the tactics failing. I think it's just a matter of 3 really well-worked goals in the first period, making the difference. I mean, just some big rips from some really great players early on did it. And especially now that we're in the home stretch of the season, it's going to have to change the way the Lightning respond to these kind of things. They need to toughen up and, really sense the urgency that is upon them right now, because the Lightning are as close to first place as they have been all season. 4 points with 1 game in hand against the Florida Panthers, 2 points behind the Maple Leafs in third. So 4 points separates first from third place. The Panthers have played 1 more game than the Lightning and the Maple Leafs. Each of the 3 teams will play against each other 1 more time this season. In fact, the Maple Leafs host the Lightning Maple Leafs travel to the Lightning and the Panthers on consecutive days in April, the 8th and the 9th. So those 2 games could define the entire season. Until we get there, though, we're going to give a full breakdown of the fight for first place coming up next. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much money I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Well, when I first planned this segment, I was hoping that it was going to be a lot more fruitful. Something I don't think I talked about as much in segment 2 was going into tonight, the Maple Leafs were off. By the time the Lightning game started, the Penguins had a 3-2 lead over the Panthers in the second period. And as I mentioned, the Maple Leafs not playing. So this was the game in hand Toronto had over the Lightning. Toronto coming off a loss themselves. Going into this game, I'm thinking the Lightning have a chance to battle for first place at home on Tuesday against Pittsburgh. Great scenario. Didn't work out like that. Unfortunately, the Panthers came back, and even more unfortunately, the Lightning were unable to make up that game with a victory and took the loss, falling behind the Maple Leafs, staying in third in the Atlantic Division. The Maple Leafs 42-25-3. The Panthers 43-25-3. The Lightning 40-25-5 as the Bolts 2-2 in shootouts so far this season. The Lightning have been within 2 points of first place, now down to 4 for the better part of the last couple of weeks. The Panthers have been slipping a little bit. The Maple Leafs have been slipping a little bit. And the Lightning have been so close, but haven't done enough to just get over that hump and get into first place. But this coming week is going to be maybe the most challenging time to do so. It is a homestand that the Lightning, I think, need to win maybe all of these games, because we'll start off comparing this to the other 2 schedules for the Panthers this week. The Panthers have the lightest schedule. They face the Lightning in their final game of the season, Lightning's home finale before they finish the year in New York against the Rangers. This week, the Maple Leafs and Lightning will gain some ground on the Panthers, with Florida playing only 2 more games this week, going to Sunday with a game against Utah and a game against Montreal, both in Miami or Sunrise. The Maple Leafs play 4 games this week. A game at home against the Flyers on Tuesday, and then a 3-game road trip out to California, Sharks, Kings, and Ducks. The easiest schedule of the 3, with the real exception of the Panthers, I guess. But compared to the Lightning, who play 3 games this week as well, another date against the Utah Hockey Club on Thursday, split in between a Tuesday date with Sidney Crosby and the Penguins and the Islanders game on Saturday. Now, the game against the Penguins is saved in some ways. Anthony Cirelli left for a little bit against the Golden Knights. That would have been bad to have him out against Sidney Crosby, as that is a one-on-one defensive matchup that I think Cirelli can excel in and hopefully slow down one of the greatest players of all time. But the Lightning have a couple games that now they need to win even more. As I said earlier, this is the time of the season where the wins mean more and the losses hurt a lot more. And the Lightning are facing 3 middle-of-the-pack teams. I mean, you look at the Panthers, the Utah Hockey Club facing Florida, coming off a back-to-back with the Lightning, gives the Panthers a little bit of an edge. Canadians are fighting for a playoff spot and are one of the best teams since the calendar turned to 2025. The Panthers have games against the Sharks and Ducks, both of whom had their playoff hopes dashed long ago. And the Sharks, who are one of 2 teams currently eliminated from the playoffs, the Blackhawks being the other one. So you have games on paper that the Maple Leafs should pick up pretty easily with a challenge coming against the Kings. Meanwhile, Lightning are playing against teams that are all challenging for playoff spots. The Penguins are 5 points out of the second wild card spot in the Metropolitan Division. The Utah Hockey Club, as I mentioned, 10 points out of a wild card spot, but they've already beaten the Lightning this week. And the Islanders are 4 points ahead of the Panthers and 1 point with 2 games in hand out of a playoff spot against their rival New York Rangers. So these 3 games at home, even though the Lightning are one of the best home teams in the entire NHL, the Bolts with a 24-8-2 record at home so far this season, these aren't games that you can look at on paper anymore. These are games between contending teams and teams fighting for playoff spots. And frankly, the Lightning may still be threatened in their playoff spot. I don't want to say that the Senators and the Canadians, the Red Wings, are done. I mean, they're certainly a bit further out than I'm sure they would like to be, but you can't count them out. I mean, those are all teams capable of making a late surge. And the Lightning are in a division that I think has lower point totals than you'd think because it's just a whole group of guys beating up on each other. The Lightning started the year 3-9 against Atlantic Division teams and now have a winning record against Atlantic Division teams. They're 6-3 in their last 9 games, whether that was not the case in their first 9 games against Atlantic Division company. And this is a homestand that comes to the Lightning at a really fortunate time when they need to make up some ground in the home stretch of the season, and they have fallen to second place. And earlier in the show, I mentioned the Lightning's homestand at the beginning of February and kind of likened it to the situation right now because the Lightning came off an overtime loss at home against the Islanders, a game that, you'd feel that they should have won. And I believe we're in 5th. They were out of a playoff spot if the season ended before their sweep of the Senators and what ended up being their 7-game winning streak that put them back into fighting for a wild card spot into an Eastern Conference contender like I feel they now are. These 3 games at home will prove whether the Lightning are going to just be settling for a wild card spot or whether or not they're a contender in the Eastern Conference. Because you look up and down this roster, the talent is there. You've got the goalkeeper. You've got great leadership. You've got solid defenders. You have the best offensive team in hockey. That's a contending roster, period. But now it's time for the Lightning to prove it in the home stretch of the season. And if I'm the Lightning, you can't expect to take 3 games of really any series, even if it is a homestand, with the Lightning being one of the best home teams in hockey. But in these next 3 games at home, I'd want the Lightning to take 2 of them at the bare minimum. Obviously, 3 of them. You want the Lightning to win out. I mean, frankly, if I'm being honest, that's what I want them to do. Let's just speak that into existence. Lightning go off on an epic run to end the season and roll all the way into the Stanley Cup. That'd be great. But for this homestand, the Lightning need to finish it with a winning record, or they don't have a chance at first place, because right now they're contenders. But if they play to their opponent, if they drop themselves out of the first place race, if they slip up against these contending teams that they're about to face, they're going to be in big trouble, not just for the rest of the regular season, but for the playoffs as well. On that note, I want to thank all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen today and every day. For your second listen, make sure to check out the Locked On NHL podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter, with the local coverage that you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And wherever you listen to today's podcast, please make sure to give us a like, a follow, and subscribe. We really appreciate your guys' support because we do this show for you. So thank all of you for tuning in to Locked On Lightning. Go Bolts, and have a great start to your week.